Hey, good evening. This is Kathy Beatty with Divorce Support Anonymous, stepping into your living room, dining room, wherever you have your computer, to speak about the trauma of going through divorce and giving you some helpful tips, some tools, some techniques as you go through the trauma of divorce. So, tonight's topic, as you can see there, is financial tips going through divorce. Now, let me say a disclaimer, this is not my expertise. I am a mediator where we deal with finances. I'm a divorce coach where we discuss finances. And I also am in a support group where we discuss and talk about finances. But I'm not an expert in this area. I know the basics. And so my first point that I don't have up here is find your financial expert to guide you through this. The tips that I'm going to give you today are really just some basic tips, some things to think about, and hopefully it will be a help to you. So let's see. Let me also say that we do have this document that is free upon request, and you can find this at my website, Divorce Support Anonymous, and it is a free download. You can now just go ahead and download it, and you will have that. And it does discuss some of the financial areas in which are very relevant and very important to you. So be sure and pick that up. It is a no cost. Just go to my website, divorcesupportanonymous.com, and you will see that it is there available. Okay, tips tonight. We're going to talk about going through divorce. And for some of you, depending on where you're at in this process, this may seem a little simplistic. However, if you're just going into divorce, these things are very frightening. So it's important for us to take these steps to be able to deal with the finances as we go through divorce. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to get all the financial documents together. We need W-2s for the last couple of years. We will need that. We'll need all of the loans, all of the car values, all of the documentation that goes with your assets. That includes, if you have a home, then that would include that you would need an appraisal to get the true value of the home that you're talking about. So sometimes people will use the market analysis. I don't believe, and the people that I've talked to, the legal experts, do not believe that it's a true number for you to work with. You are better off getting an appraiser. And if you get an appraiser and you cooperate so that both of you are in agreement on who appraises your home, that's really a good idea. So get your documents together, and that document may also be the appraisal of the home, because typically that is the largest financial asset that people have. So number two, it's really kind of a warning here. Don't hide assets, because if it is discovered, and it will be discovered, the judge is going to be very unhappy with you, and there will be penalties attached. So even though you would like to keep that off the table for discussion, it is vitally important that you do not hide the assets, that you bring them forth. They will be divided. And in the state of Michigan and the majority of states, the assets will be divided 50%, 50-50. Now, as stated here, all of your debts are going to be divided. However, there are ways, let's go down to point number 4 here, to devise some negotiations for the finances. For example, maybe you have a 401k and you also have equity in the home. You want more equity in the home for whatever reason, and you are willing to forego that same amount in the retirement. That is absolutely a negotiation that can take place in mediation. I see it all the time. So for whatever reason, you may decide, I want the home, I want more of my investment into the home. In that case, I will allow him to have more of the 401k, or the equal amount of 401k, so that we both have two assets that could grow in value. And they also have two assets that could decrease in value, but there's a risk either way. So Have your plans financially, and this you can discuss with your attorney, or if you're going into mediation without an attorney, make sure that you have sat down with a financial expert and gone over the values and what's the predicted increase of the value of the property, and all those things, to get as much information as you can. You can't predict the future, but you can have some ideas of how the market might look and what is the best way to equal out the value of the assets. And don't forget your cars. If one car has very minimal value and the other car has a lot of value, then there is some financial balancing that needs to be done there, which you also can say, okay, you drive the more expensive car, you keep the car, but the difference in the value of our car, I want to put that I want to have that in the house and not necessarily just pay me out in cash for the difference. I hope this is making sense. But I want you to know, when you hear, especially in Michigan and the majority of states, that, well, we're going to have to split things 50-50. That is true. However, you can be creative with that 50-50. And so it doesn't mean that you have to take half the 401k and half of the equity of the home. You don't. You can negotiate and you can work through that and figure out a way that works, hopefully, for both of you. Okay. So who's paying the bills in the meantime? Usually it is status quo. Your attorneys will probably recommend that. Sometimes it's necessary to get a temporary order that the bills are paid. The kids' needs are met. Whoever used to buy the groceries now buys the groceries. Whoever used to pay the utility now pays the utility. And if it's someone who is a stay-at-home mom, you are going to want to make sure that you are getting all the bills paid in the meantime during the process of divorce. And that would be typically exactly how it was beforehand. Now, unfortunately, a lot of times I'm dealing with people who are living in the same home as they go through this process of divorce. And hopefully you would keep that status quo again of paying the same bill. Whoever was paying the bills will continue to pay the bills. Another question you are going to want to ask is there premarital assets or property? So, for example, when you got married, you had established a home that is in your name and your mortgage, and then you were married, and then the person came into your home. The value of that home may very well be premarital. In other words, it's taken off the table and not divided. However, what happens many times is that people will what's called commingle. They will they have this property that was premarital, but they take out another large loan to do improvements or whatever, and they both go on the loan, and they both are responsible for the mortgage or that debt. You have now commingled, and now that has become marital debt. Okay, it's not premarital. It is marital debt to be divided. Okay. Number 7, assets have financial value. So keep in mind, again, your cars, your boat, your motorcycle, your Harley, whatever it is, the cabin, they all have financial value to be divided. Okay? So keep that in mind, and you'll get the Blue Book price or whatever, however you value a boat or a motorcycle. You will get that value to be divided or to be purchased, bought out from the other person. So number 8 is who keeps the house. This is always a huge question. It is simplest. However, it doesn't work that way. What's simple in divorce? Absolutely nothing. But if you were to sell the home and divide the proceeds, that would be the simplest to do. However, it's not always that easy, because if you have children in the home and they're already having so much disruption of stability, you may want to keep the home for stability for the children. Okay, so just depending, but that is going to be one of the issues that you are going to discuss and work out. Who keeps the home? And do I need to buy the other person out from the equity of the home? So if you have a $400,000 home and you have $100,000 remaining, so you then would have $300,000 of equity, and that would be divided, and then you would have to pay out, to refinance it, actually pay out the $50,000 because you do own 50% of that equity. And okay, am I getting in the weeds too much here? I may be. And this is something, especially in the financial area, you are not going to grasp all at once. Sometimes you need to have just bits and pieces given to you to figure out, because it can be so overwhelming, especially the financial piece, because you need to be able to survive after this divorce. You need to make sure that you are getting what is due you of your investment into the marriage. So again, find that financial expert, listen to a lot of podcasts, talk with your bank, your mortgage company, talk with those financial people, your financial advisors, sit down and have conversations with them to learn all that you can about the finances. So there's a lot of tips there, and it's complicated when it comes to this, but financial fear is one of the largest fears that people have. What is going to happen to me? How does this work? And so the smaller bites that you can take at understanding this, the better off you are. Now, for some of us, we are very good with finances and we understand how it all works, but some of us are at a true disadvantage here. I have had mediations where the husband said, my wife handled all the finances. I did nothing. I just brought in the paycheck, handed it to her. She paid all the bills. She knew everything that was going on. More commonly, of course, is the woman is in that situation. He pays all the bills. I don't know what's going on. And so they're at a real disadvantage. But take heart, because you can learn this stuff and you will have to learn this stuff. It's possible. Get your network of experts. Get those people who are going to walk you through all of these steps and what it all means. We haven't even discussed, the quadro and the retirement. That's a whole nother issue that needs to be discussed. But that is a huge chunk of the financial concern that people have as they're going through divorce. What about the retirement? What happens with the retirement? Well, that is going to be, again, it's going to be split 50-50. But you may not have to withdraw all that. You may have part as you negotiate for other things, other assets of value. So, quick run through again. Get all your financial documents together. Do not hide assets. Do not hide assets. It is not worth the penalty and the trouble that it's going to cause you. This is complicated enough. Just be honest, have integrity, put it all out there on the table to be divided and to be worked through. All debts will be divided. Come up with a plan with your attorney or how you would like to see this work. Put it in writing. Sit down and start drawing out some diagrams of what would be the ideal of what you would like to see. Well, I'd like to keep the house and he can keep his retirement, whatever that is. But work this out ahead of time. Think this through before you go into a mediation, because you're going to be stressed. You're going to be stressed in mediation. You can't think as clearly. Yes, your attorney's there, but it's really dependent upon you to make those decisions. So come up with some negotiations, some scenarios that you would like. Who pays the bills in the meantime as you're going through the process of divorce? That should be status quo. May be necessary to get a court order to keep it that way, to make sure that the kids are fed, the heat stays on, the lights remain on. What is premarital? And if you have that, and if it is truly premarital, it will not be divided in the divorce. Assets have financial value. Think of those, that motorcycle, the car, the motorhome, whatever it is you have, those two will be, and the value will be divided. Who keeps the house? That's the biggest question. Typically in divorce, who keeps the house? What do we do with that? So a couple of scripture verses. Let me put that out there. A wise man saves for the future, but a foolish man spends whatever he gets. So even through divorce, you do have to be thinking of your future. This is not a one and done. The decisions that you are making financially right now will affect you the rest of your life. So make sure that you are looking out for your future as you deal through the divorce. And of course, the beautiful verse, which is a warning to all of us: the rich rule over the poor, the borrower is a slave to the lender. So the less you can borrow, the freer you are. I hope this has been of help, and please go onto my website, Divorce Support Anonymous, download this free workbook. It is going to guide you seeing your attorney for the first time and also going through mediation. So there are a lot of helpful tips in there, a lot of informative. It's about 49 pages, and it is going to help you be knowledgeable as you go through this process. With that, I will wish you a good night, and thank you for watching. And I am here if you want to have a conversation. My name is Kathy Beatty with Divorce Support Anonymous, walking with you every step of the way through the trauma and after the trauma of divorce. Have a good evening.